Okay, so I'll talk about a project that I started when I was in graduate school in the early 90s in the Bay Area in California. And I was going to graduate school actually at the school that Jens teaches at and is the director of the gallery at now. Back then it was called California College of Arts and Crafts, and it was located in Oakland, and now the main campus is in San Francisco. But while I was going to school there, a friend of mine, Elizabeth Meyer, introduced me to an art center in San Francisco that's called Creativity Explored, which I think actually is similar to the place that we're at here. It's an open studio for artists with developmental disabilities to make art in. And I was really taken with that place and the artists who I met there and the work that I saw there. And so Elizabeth and I started volunteering there while I was still in graduate school. And it was a really interesting contrast for me to see the work that was being made by my fellow graduate students in comparison to the work that was being made by the artists at Creativity Explored. And I found that I was actually much more sort of drawn to the work that was being made at Creativity Explored than I was my own artwork and my fellow graduate students' artwork. Which is, I could go into that more, but I won't right now. Anyway, so one of the things that we felt compelled to do, because we were getting this access to seeing this work and meeting these people, was that we wanted to make it available to a broader audience. And back then, in the early 90s, there wasn't the internet in a functional way, in the way that it's functioning now. So the thing that we used to do was we would make Xerox magazines or zines as a way to sort of spread the word. It was still quite limited in comparison to the way that a website can function now, but at the time it was sort of the way that the method that we had for spreading information, our sort of printing press. So we started this zine that was titled Whippersnapper Nerd. One of the artists at Creativity Explored, John McKenzie, came up with the title. And each issue would be devoted to one of the artist's work, drawings or collages or whatever that artist had done, an interview with that artist, and a bio and photograph of them too. So this was the issue number 6, the Andrew Lee issue. And we did 8 different issues and a small book that was called Fears of Your Life. And then while we worked there over about a 2 or 3 year period. And at the same time, we were also making videos with the artists that we met there and doing various other projects. But when we completed our 8th issue of this, we were asked by a contemporary art museum in San Francisco called Yerba Buena Center for the Arts to do an exhibition about the magazine project and Creativity Explored. So this is what a section of that looked like. We did these large-scale wall drawings, one drawing for each of the artists we had worked with on the magazine. So you see the Andrew Lee image there in the middle. And then there was a section of their interview text that was also printed on these walls. We also showed original work and videos that they had made and various other that these artists had done. This is the John McKenzie section of the wall, the person who came up with the Whippersnapper Nerd title. He always did text pieces, and he had a stat. And then the book that we did, Fears of Your Life, with Michael Loggins, who we'd also done a Whippersnapper Nerd issue with, was just a list of 138 fears that we produced as a small Xerox magazine, and then it was reproduced on the stairway wall at Yerba Buena. And it's a really amazing list of fears, ranging from sort of standard ones, like the first one is fear of hospitals and needles, and then there's other ones that are really complex and personal. Like there's one in there that's about going down an escalator and then reaching for your brother's hand and then realizing that it wasn't your brother whose hand you were holding, and things like that. So that I think almost anybody could sort of find a fear in there to relate to. Since doing this project, Michael's list of fears was reproduced in Harper's Magazine, read on This American Life, included in a film that Miranda July made, and was also turned into a dance musical performance. So it really got a lot of mileage. This is Michael, and then the person who created that list. And then eventually it was also published as a hardbound book, which you can, this is the cover of that you can order off of Amazon today. If you're interested, and he's since done a second book as well. But this is sort of an example, I think, of one of my big interests, which is to sort of look for artists who would otherwise go sort of unnoticed, or would remain kind of within a very sort of small setting of knowledge, of people who would be aware of their work, and then taking that work and putting it into a context that gives it more exposure and gives it a broader audience. Yeah, so that's that one. Any questions about that? Michael Loggins. Well, I meant that he got a lot of mileage out of it. Not that I did, but no, I had no idea at the time. We thought that was it. You know, we had no idea that. I didn't even know, you know, what This American Life, or I had no idea that Harper's Magazine would contact us, and you know, it's just like one thing led to another. It kind of snowballed. So we thought what we were doing was the end of the line, that, you know, at that time. And we thought that was still fairly major. It was going from being completely obscure and only, you know, a few people reading it, to making, you know, like 300 copies and distributing them around the Bay Area or something. Kind of. I mean, I didn't get paid, so it wasn't a manager in that sense, but I think in some ways it fulfilled that role. But I mean, it's not unlike what a curator might do, who sort of champions the work of an artist and sort of tries to promote that artist's work through the venues that they have access to. And for us, the venue we had access to was Xerox magazines that we could sort of distribute at that time. And then that led to doing the exhibition and led to these other kinds of possibilities. Yeah. The Xeroxes we did there, they had a Xerox machine, and so there was no cost. When it went to Yerba Buena, they paid for all the production, because they're like, you know, SICA or something like that. They're a contemporary art center with funding, and so they you know, paid for it. It wasn't like a major exhibition, but it was probably, you know, $5,000 or something like that to produce that show. And then the publisher published it at their costs, and you know, all these other venues put their money towards promoting it. We acknowledged that the artists were coming from Creativity Explored, and that Creativity Explored was an art center for artists with developmental disabilities. But the way that Creativity Explored works is that, and I don't know how it compares to this place, because I just found out about this when we came in here, but they don't talk at all really about what anybody's individual disability is, and there's no medical staff or therapists there. It's only artists. And so they really sort of downplay that side of it, and really are only kind of looking at the interests and abilities of the artists who are working there, and not really thinking of it so much. But at the same time, I think that it's not unimportant information, just like any artist's biography is important and can be very interesting to sort of understanding that person's artwork and where they're coming from. So we didn't at all hide it, but we didn't highlight it either. And in fact, I don't actually know exactly what Michael's medical condition is. It's just that to wind up at Creativity Explored, you have to qualify, you know, through the regional center's mandate on like what qualifies for being developmentally disabled. Okay, we'll go on.
Oh, yeah. This was a project that I organized 5 years ago at the ICA in London. It was called Surprise, Surprise. And I worked at the ICA as a director of, and I kind of put his request and the title of the show together to come up with this exhibition. And what I did here is that I asked very, very famous artists to display a piece in the exhibition that would be completely different from what they're actually famous for. So you would think about someone like Luc Tuymans, for example, very famous Belgian artist, to give us a piece, and instead of a painting, he would give you some strange little rubber objects. So all of those works in the exhibition were completely different from what the audience would expect to see when they would actually read the list of artists in the on the invitation card. And you can, you know, just go through like the who is who of contemporary art, and there were probably presented there in the show, whether that was like Richard Prince